connected consumer. Hello, everybody. I'm Chris White.
And I'm Rosey Sera, and we are the hosts of Parks Associates podcast, The Connected Consumer.
For today's episode, we are joined by Infineon Technologies Vice President of Software and Ecosystem, Rob Conant, to chat about how IoT components are increasingly gathering data that makes them smarter and helps improve their performance.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hey, great. It's good to see you again, Rosie. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Rob.
Great to
Good
be
to
with
see
you.
you too.
Yes.
Well, I'm excited to have this conversation. There's lots going on over at Infineon, and we're excited to dive into the convo. Tell us a little bit more about your background, your role at Infineon, and a little bit about Infineon too.
Sure. So, Infineon is a semiconductor manufacturer. We supply semiconductors across all sorts of different industries. A lot of power components, a lot of motor components, a lot in industrial, a lot in automotive, a lot in smart home, a lot of compute products and connectivity products. A broad, diversified supplier of semiconductor products. And we're also quite advanced in software in a number of different areas too. Now, I myself am an IoT guy. I've been in the IoT space for much of my career, in software companies, hardware companies. I started one of the seminal IoT companies, a company called Dust Networks. That was back in the early days of IoT when these kind of connectivity technologies weren't really ubiquitous. And I've been in full stack companies in the smart grid space, selling to electric utilities. I came to Infineon through the acquisition of the software company I started called Sera, that provides product analytics to companies making consumer electronics products. And I'm also one of the things I wanted to mention. I'm not sure I mentioned this last time, but I'm on the board of an organization that's a really cool organization called Rainforest Connection that uses IoT technologies to fight climate change by monitoring the rainforest for illegal logging, and also monitors biodiversity, which is really cool. So everything IoT is within my domain.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said a couple things there that we need to get back to. But the first thing I was thinking about is like when I first came to working at Parks Associates, and I understood the smart home space really only as a consumer and an analyst of consumer experience data. I started to learn more about what was going on behind the scenes, and we were talking about um, kind of what Infineon's role is, and the analogy we kind of came up with together, I think is good and really helpful to our listeners, which is that the traditional devices around the home, they were optimized essentially in the factory by the manufacturers, and they didn't communicate with each other at all. So the evolution of the smart home is the idea that like now the devices are communicating with each other in our little home ecosystem, they can be optimized, they can work better. It's not just adding extra features that are nice to have, it's also about efficiency on like kind of a practical level. And that's what like component makers like yourselves that are a little bit behind the scenes sometimes and not the brands that I knew about before I came are doing a lot to change what's going on kind of internally to help optimize by making communication more sophisticated internally. So I thought that was really like a really cool thing that you came up with, and a good analogy for like connecting the Infineon's impact to consumers a little bit by making an analogy that we can understand. So that was good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn. We're here to learn, Rob.
Exactly.
And you got that right on the money. That's exactly right. I mean, having been in this IoT space for a long time, Chris, I think consumers, but especially the people who are involved with your events and podcasts, people are thinking about the connected consumer, thinking about connected industry, and largely thinking about how those products get better or deliver new capabilities to those customers. And so today, it's kind of common knowledge or common view that if someone's making a smart home product, they're going to collect some data to understand how that product is working so they can improve the next generation of it, right? Or maybe even improve that generation of it. Apple with their phones, they're updating the software based on data from the field. And even the companies that are making the apps on the phone are updating those apps based on real measured crashes from apps on those phones. Tesla is monitoring their vehicles on the road, and not only designing new products based on that data, but also improving existing products in the field through software updates to to
Yeah.
those products. And so
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
like
the on-the-fly updates, like the ability for on-the-fly updates to make these changes seamless for consumers is like another like really revolutionary piece that you guys are
totally, yeah, exactly. And like, and they can do that because data is flowing now.
right.
And one of the cool things that I've been seeing more and more recently, having being inside Infineon, is that the IoT is moving down the stack to some of the component providers. So normally these component providers like Infineon think about moving up the stack and providing more value to our customers, and that happens all the time, right? We're constantly thinking about and doing that. But this IoT technology is moving down the stack. So we are now able to aggregate and collect data about how our components are used in products in the field so that we can make those components better for the OEMs, for the companies that make those products. That I hadn't seen that much in the past, but that's happening more and more now, which I think is really cool and should kind of get us on at an inflection point of the improvement of these kinds of products. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean that's super exciting conceptually that the interaction with the chain that way. Can you connect us to some examples, some sort of products that we would be familiar with that are benefiting?
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, we provide. I can't talk about all of them, but I'll say one of them that I can talk about. I think is super exciting. It's around Wi-Fi chips. We sell Wi-Fi chips to many of the big smart home companies, and I'd say most of the best battery operated Wi-Fi smart home products use our Wi-Fi technology. We have great low power Wi-Fi technology. Clearly leading the market in a bunch of different dimensions. But one of the things that we've done over the course of the past few years that I just think is a lot of companies don't see and don't really recognize is we've started to aggregate data from where our customers allow us. We can aggregate some
Right.
data about how those Wi-Fi products are used in the field, and we were able to identify Wi-Fi protocol issues that cause say 20% of the products to consume literally 8 times the normal energy consumption.
Wow.
So the battery life would be 1/8 of what you would expect it to be normally. And we were able to come up with some clever algorithms that work around these Wi-Fi issues with these routers so that we could triple the battery life for those products, all with software, all based on real measured data in the field. That just was not possible in the past. And it's a huge benefit for those companies making battery operated products, and it's a huge benefit for their customers who now have a good battery life for their products who before may have suffered.
Yeah, I mean that type of technology has really facilitated some growth in some categories that we study that are really important, right? So like smart video doorbells, for example, is either the number one or number two smart home category, depending on whether you count smart speakers. And they're located on an edge of premise. They're moving video data, which is big, lot of data, right? They're maybe doing inferencing on the cloud. Maybe they're doing inferencing on the edge. If they're doing it on the edge, that's even more energy that they're using hypothetically. And people want them to be battery operated because they don't want to hire an electrician to do installation of something that's $100. They don't want a $200 electrician visit next to their $100 gadget purchase, right?
Totally.
So allowing that type of big category to grow is important. And we're still, and pro installs coming back a little bit, right? So like there was a boom from like, let's say 15 to 19, where a lot of people were just getting really excited about DIY because it was just fun to do, I think, or there was a lot of novelty. And then COVID made it weird to have installers come and do work. And then we came out, and now pro installs making a comeback. But even as we track that, it's still a minority. Like it's still 60% DIY install for thermostats, cameras, and door locks, which is like 2, 3, 5 or something like that on the list of like most adopted devices, with like 14% to like 12%, I think, for locks, depending on how we track it. And that's a big deal. So figuring out a way to make that Wi-Fi connectivity energy efficient so that people aren't having to change batteries every 2 or 3 months is a big deal.
It is a big deal, and I totally agree. And so it's a lot of customers, and one of the challenges there is like with with Wi-Fi, the challenge sometimes is that the product company doesn't know what kind of router is going to be inside that home. They don't know,
Exactly.
what the environment in that home is going to be in terms of the RF interference. A home in the country is going to be totally different from a home in an apartment building in a densely populated area,
Right.
and the power consumption from a Wi-Fi standpoint is going to vary tremendously depending on those different environments. And so, what our customers want from us is, predictability, to be able to effectively balance the responsiveness and the performance with power consumption so that customers have a good user experience with those products. And to do that in the lab is just really complicated because you can't replicate a million environments in the lab.
Right.
Mhm.
But with these, what the IoT does is it sort of shifts it to the point where we actually can validate things across massive quantities of products in real physical environments that customers are deploying in, and see what the impact of those things is, and continuously improve those products over the lifetime. Now, not only in releasing new products, but frankly, firmware changes or firmware updates, improvements in those algorithms to continue to make those products better over time. And from what our customers tell us is like that, that addresses some of the key pain points that their customers face with those battery operated products. And without IoT, it just would never be visible. Like these companies, the only thing they have to measure is, the only thing they could measure before is customer complaints, right? How many people call
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
how many customer support calls. And now we can actually see what customers are experiencing and fix it proactively so they don't have to complain.
Yeah. I mean, we see that behind the setup stuff, which we already talked about, like making things easy in DIY, is a big deal. We see a lot of people complaining about their devices' connectivity, and that generates a lot of returns, which then our retailers, when we talk to them, and the manufacturers, they're the ones who suffer. There's a lot, and then there's finger pointing, like, okay, your device wasn't doing a good job staying connected, but we don't really know what the environment is, and you're trusting amateurs like Rosey and I to get their home Wi-Fi scenario set up correctly, so that we can use this stuff that is like, you guys put your heart and soul into developing
Totally.
cool connected stuff, and then I don't know how to
Yeah, I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about the development of the products. Could you dive into more of the development of the products over at Infineon, and kind of what it means for the consumer at the end too?
Yeah, sure. So, um, we make for consumer products, largely, MCUs, so the microcontrollers that are used to provide the intelligence in these products, as well as the connectivity, so Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity. And so we have development teams all over the world that have a ton of experience that have been looking at these, but not only making chips that implement the best Wi-Fi technology, but actually contributing into the Wi-Fi Alliance, for example. And so, from an internal perspective, we've got teams focused on security. Every couple months there are additional security vulnerabilities that pop up. Our team's all over that, fixes it, releases new code to our customers. We've got data coming in from the field that allows us to improve the performance of our product so that our customers can roll that out. And so we have a nice tight kind of connection with our customers. But in a lot of cases, we actually work pretty closely with our customers to help them optimize their products in their own environment, in the physical package that they are deploying
Mhm.
in, so that they can make their product great for the customers. Because at the end of the day, we want those products that are using our technology to be the best product, and that means a great user experience.
right. So people don't know if they can find Infineon inside on the packaging, but
Right.
that's what they need to be looking for. So
Yeah.
okay, so that tells us kind of how we got to where we are. Could we talk a little bit about what's going on next? Where where is this the progress that you've made in this development going to go? Are we looking at new use cases? Are you looking at expanding in commercial, expanding in industrial? What do you think is the future of the current technology that you're using? Is it going to be big leaps or new use cases?
Yeah, sure. So, we work in so many different application segments. It's so diverse. I would say that across the board, whether it's smart home, um, automotive, energy, industrial, each of those areas is being impacted by this concept of the IoT and data. Um, I think my sense is that Tesla really led the way for car companies in using data from the field to continuously improve their products, and also, like you mentioned, Chris, that field updatability. And so those companies, cars are becoming IoT products, and that is transforming how we see cars, and frankly how companies like Infineon can provide value to those car manufacturers. Um, the same is true in the industrial space. So industrial, covers a lot of different application sets, but think about like power generation, for example, wind turbines. Wind turbines are, for the most part, all connected, and those connected products have reliability issues. There's a tremendous amount of power flowing through those products, and Infineon provides a lot of the core power conversion components that go into into both the generators as well as the power distribution, and that the reliability of those systems is super critical.
Right.
Um, that we historically a lot of that work has been done, the work to optimize those products has been done in the lab, but now we're moving towards more data around those products usage in the field being used to optimize the use of those products, optimize the designs, and provide, frankly, the operators of those products visibility into the remaining lifetime of those products, so they can kind of implement these right predictive maintenance programs around those products so that they can get more value at lower cost with the products. Um,
Yeah, that remote monitoring piece is such a big deal when you consider things like, so in the wind example. So let me tell you a story. So here's a benefit of being my son, or for having me as a son, right? So my parents call. They want to talk about their grandkids. Instead, I'm telling them about what I'm working on, and they say like, "Oh, you're doing smart energy stuff. I think we're getting some wind power." And I'm like, "That's right. You guys are building offshore wind." And let me tell you about how important it is that you can do critical asset management and monitoring remotely using technology. So I gave them a nice speech about how it's hard to get out to your wind turbine to fix it, and so remote monitoring is very important. And they were like, literally, why will you put your kid on the phone? But they're very lucky, so they get to hear this type of content just in a personal call, just in their spare time.
Lucky them. They don't even have to come to the conference to get that content
Right, that's
either.
free for them.
Exactly. Okay, so we covered a little bit about the commercial perspective. Can we dive into the consumer perspective of the benefits to the users? How does it help customers? And then I also want to kind of tie in the environmental aspect of it too.
Yeah, your environmental mission. That was a
Yeah.
cool piece.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you asked that, because so I'll talk about the consumer, but I also do want to talk about that environmental aspect. So, as a consumer, there's so much that's changing in the consumer smart home market, the consumer IoT market, and I've been in IoT long enough to kind of see that these things that we call the IoT then, today are just normal, like phones and cars and TVs. But all of these are connected products that are where the use of those products or the design of those products are being optimized with data, and the value to consumers is tremendous. I mean, that if you look at TVs today, just as an example, consumer electronics, the amount of TV that you can get for $500 is phenomenal in comparison to what it was 10 years ago.
For
And
sure.
that is largely because of innovation in business model for these TV providers, right? As a consumer, not only do we have the ability to stream all content ever created, but we can do that on a panel that is huge, super high quality, great picture quality, great audio quality, that we can buy for not much money, because they make a little money every time we buy some content. And so the business models are changing in ways that really work great for customers. And we aren't necessarily thinking about that as consumers all the time, but everything is just consistently getting better, especially these connected products consistently getting better in ways that we will only be able to look at kind of in retrospect. Um, but that, yeah,
There's a new category that follows that kind of path too, right? You just reminded me with um, the smart TV, but like EVSE is also having kind of that model, right? Where it's like you're gonna sell it right at break even with this idea of there being follow on.
What's
Uh,
EVSE?
Supply equipment, is that right? So EV chargers, EV
yeah,
supply equipment. That's what the
Okay.
nerds call it, Rosie.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I
Write
didn't
it
know what
down so
that
you can
meant.
talk with the nerds about it. Yeah, so components in there, right? And you guys are involved in that space too?
yeah. EV charging, it's a super exciting space. I mean, these companies, the number of think about the number of gas stations that are out there today. And here in California, I think they recently announced, if I remember right, that they won't be selling internal combustion cars by 2035. That's just not that far away.
It's
So we're going to
Yeah,
see
ridiculous.
this rapid movement of everybody using EV chargers, and all of this infrastructure, all of these gas stations are going to be, eventually be gone, right? They'll transition away, but they'll eventually be gone, replaced with a lot of home chargers. But they're going to be a tremendous number of public chargers as well. And even today, I live in Silicon Valley, and it's hard to find a charger that's available because there are more electric cars than chargers. If you look at
yeah.
companies like ChargePoint's, like, hundreds of thousands of additional chargers that they'll deploy in the not distant future, millions, many millions across the United States and across Europe. And that, just the quantity of the infrastructure that will be deployed is phenomenal. And that, there's a big opportunity to do that, right, to do that in a way that these things are efficient, to do that in a way that these things are safe, to do it in a way that they're reliable. And you're totally right about the business model, Chris. Like, if you look at the economics of one of these electric vehicle chargers, the upfront, the money for the upfront installation of the charger for a fleet operator might be half of the lifetime revenue. So half of that lifetime revenue comes later. And with the interest rates going up, that totally changes the economics of the capital equipment that gets deployed at the beginning. And so I think you're going to see a lot of changes just because of the interest rate changes in the EV charging industry. But to the extent that we can help them deploy lower cost, high capacity chargers, that's just huge for the industry.
It's kind of a hot take, Rob. I like to do that in there. Also, EV chargers are facing the even more extreme version of the kind of discussion we were having about home residential connectivity, like having your devices connected when they're literally at a little rural location just off the highway, like a town that doesn't even exist really to be a town, is just a place to stop and get gas, is now going to have some charge point equipment that needs to work, and it needs to theoretically be working optimally, right? So that the maintenance is as little as possible on the operator. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so that's gonna make the type of work that you guys do even more important to try and make those devices really perform at their best.
Yeah, that's
So
when, think about like the old gas station on Route 66,
Mhm.
little gas station on the side of the road out in the country. Like, those are going to be
yeah,
electric vehicle chargers. It's not like there's going to be somebody sitting there maintaining it. A lot of these things are way out in the middle of nowhere, and some
right.
people need fuel, need to be able to drive, and that infrastructure is going to have to be super reliable, super connected, monitored, maintained, and in a lot of cases, people are going to need to know they're going to fail, weeks before, so that they can actually get out and fix them before they fail. And that's, EV charging is one that just happens to be growing at a massive clip. But there are examples of this, like that predictive maintenance thing, and examples of that all across the industries. And people are getting better and better and better at that because of the flow of data, because
Mhm.
these IoT concepts are moving down the stack towards the components. In a way, back to the environmental aspect, Rosie, like Infineon, big thing for Infineon is decarbonization and digitalization, and these two things are intimately tied with each other, intimately tied, like almost not possible to disconnect from each other, because it really is, in a lot of cases, it's the ability to um, consume electricity in a smart way that allows us to decarbonize the environment. That may be electric vehicles, but it's also like just the efficiency of being able to repair things before they fail, for example. that digitalization is really necessary in order to support the decarbonization.
Right, and the other piece about the predictive maintenance is like it doesn't even have to be about failure per se. Where so like I know in HVAC there's a lot of conversation about this predictive maintenance piece because it's an awesome revenue opportunity for HVAC service providers, right? But the other piece is like from an energy sort of holistic energy societal level, we want everyone's HVACs running efficiently because that's a major power user in the home. It's like 60% of the home's power, something like that. So like when the equipment is starting to fail, not only do I want it to get it fixed so that I don't have like a multi-$1,000 fixed, but also like incrementally my power bill is going up, right? So um, whenever you're working in spaces like that are like having societal impact, like in energy provider equipment and things like that, or like trying to help the EV revolution go sort of smoothly for all the sort of naysayers, it's important that things be reliable and also be working at their best so that, you know, it's not like a wasted effort to do this.
Yeah, yeah. And when you get these kind of people buying their first electric vehicle, right, or people maybe just signing up for one of these for a contract for that HVAC maintenance, they need to have a good experience in that time in order for that to continue to grow. In the EV world, you see the Ford F-150 coming out, appealing to a whole different sliver of the population around electric vehicles that may not be motivated by the green leaf on the back of the car, but may be
Right.
motivated by powering my home during a power outage. Just totally different motivations and drivers, but they're going to find those vehicles are great vehicles, and they're going to find that those great vehicles serve other purposes that they never would have imagined. And it's going to be that kind of great user experience that's really going to drive the adoption.
Amazing.
And here, those of us down in the semiconductor industry, we're layers away from the marketing of those vehicles to those customers and the specific use cases. But for us, like a tremendous amount of semiconductor technology goes into making that possible within those cars, making those cars efficient, right? Allowing the cars to charge quickly, allowing the charging to be efficient, allowing that to be economical for them to deploy not only electric vehicles but the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Like a lot of people working hard behind the scenes to make all that stuff possible, so those customers have those good experiences with their first EVs.
Right. Yeah, because that it's for the hockey stick growth to take off, it requires the people at the kind of bottom to have a good experience and share, right? Like in my old CX life, we studied net promoter score a lot. That was what we always focused on. And it's when the early adopters and the innovators first get these devices, they need to have this experience and be able to share it around. And it's especially important, like you're saying, if it's in a group that has limited appeals. So like if you bought your F-150 Lightning because you're a Texas cowboy that is mad at gas prices and don't care about the environment, just wanted to like have it be cheaper, it needs to actually turn out to be cheaper and equally convenient, so you can tell your cowboy friends to also buy them.
That's
Makes
right.
sense. I love it. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of the episode, but before we, go into our outros and everything like that, I want to go into future opportunities. What tech developments are in progress or maybe on the roadmap that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, sure. We have there is, you mentioned at the beginning, there is a ton going on, right? And in the spaces that Infineon operates around decarbonization, there's not only frankly, not only like the CHIPS Act, but a tremendous amount of investment going on in clean tech and green tech.
Right.
And we're frankly seeing an acceleration of interest in technologies that fight climate change because record temperatures, something like a third of Pakistan is underwater, droughts, here where I live in California, none of water. So, real problem. I think a lot of people are feeling real problems. And so my sense is the urgency over fighting climate change is going up, and the funding level to do that is also going up quite a bit. And so we're seeing a real acceleration in a lot of the industries that depend on companies like Infineon to provide the components necessary for them to deploy their products that do decarbonization. So a lot more adoption of solar, obviously a lot of adoption of electric vehicles. And within Infineon, a couple things that we've got going on. We always have this event, quite different, I would say, from a I love the parks events, and I go to as many of them as I can go to. But we, at Infineon, being a company based in Munich, we get Oktobertech, which has pretzels and beer. And I've never
Yeah.
had pretzels and beer at one of the parks events. I do
Yeah,
get great
that's true.
pretzels.
Hey.
Maybe next time then. Maybe next time.
Yeah.
We'll put a note
Um,
in.
but we have this Oktobertech event coming up in October. It's for some of our top customers. And one of the things that we'll be talking a lot about there is some new data analytics and AI capabilities for companies that make connected products. So it's going to be a lot of the companies that come to Parks events that use these platforms to analyze their products to understand how to make their products better. So we've got a new version of that we'll be announcing at Oktobertech.
Cool.
And then a couple other things that I'm a startup guy. Always try to be very supportive of startups. They, in a lot of cases, they're doing really interesting things. A couple companies that Infineon has partnered with that I can share with you. One is called Memfault, which is just a super cool company using effectively like remote debugging and remote diagnostics for connected products.
Okay.
Something that embedded software engineers have really struggled with over years, and they've cracked the nut on it. It's super cool. And so if you have any embedded software developers, I'd encourage you to go check that out. And another one that we've partnered with is called Goliath. It's an IoT platform company that's doing some great work around IoT device management, device lifecycle management. And so you'll see some more from us on both of those upcoming.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing. We're going to wrap things up a little bit, but I love all of the future opportunities that you mentioned. I love that some of these, IoT solutions are not only unifying the consumers because of the, environmental aspect of it, but also other players in the industry, and I love that. But let's wrap things up a little bit. Let's go into where our audience can find more information about Infineon, about you, where they can connect with you on socials, everything like that.
Yeah, if you want to learn more about any of this stuff or connect, reach out to me on LinkedIn, Rob Conant. That's probably the best way to connect with me. Around Infineon, if you're in the IoT space, I'd encourage you to check out Infineon.io. A lot of content from Infineon around our IoT platforms, products, especially around decarbonization and digitalization. It's a real big push for both Infineon and a lot of our customers. So Infineon.io, and then of course Infineon.com. You can learn more about the company there as well.
All right, awesome. And then the elites can come out and get some beer and pretzels with y'all in a couple weeks too,
That's
right?
right. That's right. If you need a special invitation, you let me know.
Awesome. Get into the DMs and see
You might
if
even get some yeah.
Exclusive.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rob. That was a great conversation. I'm going to throw it to Rosey so she can plug our stuff.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rob. I loved this conversation today. Connected consumers. Please follow us on social media. We are on Twitter. Our Parks Associates handle is just at Parks Associates. My Twitter handle is at Rosey Alpino Sera, and Chris's is at C White Insights. So feel free to follow us.
Also, if anyone is willing to give us likes, subscribes, and leave either warm messages or constructive criticism in any of the comments, that would be fantastic. Also, if you're listening to this in audio form, remember that you can also check us out on YouTube. You can see Rob's smiling face, Rosey's beautiful face.
Aww.
I'm also here. There's a lot of benefit, yeah. So check out the YouTube also, so you can kind of hang out with us and while you're taking in this new information.
Yeah. So we'll make sure to put Infineon's socials on the description notes and check out their YouTube as well. So awesome. Thank you so much, Rob, and we hope to chat soon.
Awesome. Love it. Thanks, Rosey. Thanks, Chris. Good to see you. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
You too. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.